Kid, where are we going?
To four-wheel parts.
Why?
Because we're getting a winch.
For what?
For off-roading.
Outstanding. Today is a super exciting day because we've come to
Four-wheel parts.
That's right, we've come to Four Wheel Parts in Sacramento to finally get our winch. Today we're going to look for, I believe it's the Warn VR10-s, the synthetic 10,000 pound winch. So we're going to go inside to Four Wheel Parts here in Sacramento, talk to Sam and see if we can find it. Which one should we get? That one? How much is that one?
I think we should get
$1,200. We're not getting that one. Alright, good morning. Well, we did it. Next day here, we finally picked up our winch. Yesterday we went to Sacramento up to Four Wheel Parts and picked up the winch. We ended up getting the Warn VR10 synthetic winch. I'll tell you first that I really wanted the Xeon winch, the 8S, but you know, in all actuality, I couldn't justify spending the almost $1,200 on that winch when looks like this VR10S will do me just fine. You know, based on how I currently drive and what my future plans are to drive, I figure the 10,000 pound VR winch, although made in China and not here in America like the Xeon winch, is going to do me just fine. As you can see, it's a pretty badass looking winch. It's got some great lines to it. The synthetic rope should do just fine. And hopefully it should carry me on for the next several years of my off-road use. So today this winch is going to go on to my 2005 TJ Rubicon. And as you've probably seen online, there's literally 1,000 different winch YouTube video installs. So this really isn't going to be a how-to install video. I mean, let's face it, there's a winch that has 4 bolts that mount to the frame. You got to run 2 wires to the battery cable. So there really isn't a whole lot to instruct on an install video. So we're just going to have a look at how the winch looks on the Jeep, the platform I'm going to mount it on, the wiring that I ran, and kind of give an overall review of how I feel about the winch, how the winch mounts on the Jeep, my interpretation of the mounting process, because there really isn't a whole lot of videos about how the winch mounts onto the TJ platform nowadays. And today we're going to mount it on the Metalcloak frame built bumper, which should be a pretty simple mount. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. So I went ahead and pulled out all the tools, screws, all the things that came in the box of the winch. We can kind of go over what the winch came with in a little more detail. Start off working left to right. These are the instructions for how to mount the winch, and also how to remove the control unit from the winch in case you want to invert the winch or mount it feet forward. Different ways of doing that to make it more low profile mounting system. Pretty simple. Most of us probably aren't going to want to do that because this is more of a Jeep review and Jeep channel than it is anything with trailers or commercial recovery. This is going to be your instruction booklet, your warranty, your troubleshooting. Let's face it, we're guys, so I'm not going to use that, that's for sure. This here is a specially marked package where they talk about if you want to mount the winch feet forward to like a trailer most commonly, or a tow truck, those kind of things. These are going to be the screws or the hardware you're going to use just for mounting that. But for our purposes today, we're not going to be needing that at all. This here is the Fairlead, of course, with the included decal. These are going to be your bolts for mounting the Fairlead to whatever frame system you're using. We're not going to be using these today because, as we discussed earlier, I'm using the Metalcloak Fairlead. So even though this is a nice looking Haas Fairlead with the nice badging, it's just not good for, it won't work for us, so I'm not going to use that today. And these here, if you watch any kind of mounting videos for winches, you understand that these are mounted with self-trapping, not tapping, but a trapping bolt. So essentially, these are flat on the bottom and rounded on the top, and these are going to go into the feet of the mounting plate, and you're going to bolt it in from the bottom of the mounting system. And you have the locking washers here to make sure it's secure. This Metalcloak bumper is pretty simple, and the good thing about it is it's flat and very open and accessible, not like the
newer JK models and the JLs where the winch will sit down into the bumper. This one sits up on top pretty high, so I don't anticipate having really any issues getting the bolts in there, so that should be a pretty easy process, crossing my fingers. And we discussed earlier, this is the controller that comes with it. Pretty simple, you know, up to spool out, down to spool down. It comes with this nice little one-way connector. I'm sure there's a technical term for it, but I don't know what it is. This will just mount in to the winch plate right over here. It's a nice little plug that comes in and out watertight, so it'll help you keep things nice and clean when you're on the trail. And then finally we have the worn hook assembly, which is your basic hook. It'll be switched out for probably a factor 55 system pretty soon. It'll be fine for what I need it for, but I like the factor 55 stuff, and it has a good look to it. And there is also a warning for us to make sure that we use this strap to avoid losing our lightning bolt fingers. As you can see, our fingers look like little lightning bolts, so my wife will be mad at me if I lose my fingers in a terrible winching accident, so I will make sure I follow those rules. And this is going to be what I discussed earlier, the protection for your winch rope, so you protect it from rocks dragging over branches and those kind of things to stop from fraying out the lines of your rope. Pretty cool. I think we've all seen them before. We know how they work. We'll just attach it to the last, probably 2.5 feet of the rope, and then spool it back in when we're done. So that pretty much wraps up everything that the box came with, and we'll start getting this winch bolted up. Alright, so now comes the fun part. Let's get this bad boy placed. And boom, just like that, winch install is complete. Alright, thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next time. The winch really does sit in this bumper quite nicely. I thought it was going to be a little too big or gaudy looking, but it had a really nice look to it. Okay, so the winch is all mounted up, nice and sturdy. It wasn't too big of a deal getting that winch mounted up. The only real issue that I saw, or I hate to call it an issue, was when you put these trap nuts in, they go in pretty easy, but as you're moving it around and fidgeting with the bolts from underneath it, the nuts can kind of slide out of place. So I saw someone talk about on a previous video about putting some tape on there to kind of trap the nuts in, and that would probably save, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes off the job, but it really wasn't that difficult. I just got shocked because of static electricity. That was cool. So that was pretty cool. I actually ended up using this little magnetic tool that I put the nut on the end of it and kind of stuck in the back of the housing, and that kind of kept it in there. So this was my easy fix for tape. It worked pretty well, but if you don't want to mess with something like this, or you don't have a magnetic tool, just use some tape on the edges right here to keep those nuts from wanting to work themselves out as you put the bolts up through. But otherwise, that was not a very difficult bolting process, not more than what you'd expect. When you're mounting from underneath, there is the frame support cross member that ties in the front of the frame. The winch essentially mounts right over top of. You'll have to work your way around that, but for a TJ owner, it's not that big of a deal. I think I used a swivel and a 9/16 socket and got in there pretty easy. So while running the wiring, I just went ahead and took it from the winch under the core support in the bottom of the radiator and came up and followed up basically the air conditioning lines as they come up the fender and then run along the air box. Once they come to the air box, I just keep following those air conditioning lines all the way back to the battery and ended up just coiling the excess cables behind the battery and attach them to the post as you see here. Alright, sorry about the noise. The engine's on, there's nothing smoking, no sparks flying. It seems like everything went pretty well. We're going to try to give it a shot right here to see how it works. We're going to grab the winch. Looks like you click it up, spool out, and down to go down. So we'll give it a shot right here. So yeah, there you have it. The winch is installed. It looks pretty good. Final thoughts on the whole process? Well, it's pretty simple, I guess. If you have any kind of mechanic ability or any do-it-yourself experience on the Jeep, this really isn't that hard. We're talking about 4 bolts. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. You put them down through the frame. In my case anyways, it's just 4 bolts. You may have a situation where you have to mount a winch plate if you have to remove the bumper. Your situation may be different. In my case, this was pretty simple. Like I said, it was the 4 bolts, running some wires under the base of the truck, up the Jeep, up through the engine compartment, hooking them in. I had no issues really. The Metalcloak system, the reason why I wanted to do this video is mainly because of the Metalcloak system. You don't see a whole lot of videos out there about them. It's a company real popular out west and growing, worldwide. I'm lucky to live near Sacramento, so I have easy access to the Metalcloak factory, so I get my stuff a lot faster and easier. But for this frame-built bumper system with the 52-inch high crawler caps, it made mounting this winch very, very easy. Looks, you can't beat the looks. I mean, look at that. That does look pretty good. Better than I thought it would look anyways. I'm happy with the Fairlead. I was originally worried that the Fairlead was probably going to be a little low. I hadn't seen it in practice a whole lot on any YouTube videos or photos. But wow, I mean, this is cool. This is really, really cool. I love how it looks. But for the price, yeah, I'm very happy to have a 10,000 pound winch synthetic line on a basically 4,500 pound vehicle. I suspect it's going to do everything that I ask it to do and probably more. I will go through a little bit later and put that protection strap on it and get that spooled back in. I'll run it out to the street real quick and hook it up to the back of the dually and get the lines tensioned up like they're supposed to be. Just the final install process. But looking back, this was pretty simple. If you were doing it yourself, I would say yeah, absolutely do it yourself. It's very, very, very easy. If you wanted to complicate the issue, very simple. Make a video. That makes everything way more difficult. This process could have been maybe an hour-long process, but if you want to make a video to show off to 5 or 6 people, go ahead. It's fun. It's a good experience. So, in the end, very, very satisfied, very happy. It was a fun install. It wasn't hard. Did it myself, and good luck. See you next time.